Gandhalubdha hridaye sukrita prasanga. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So word by word, they, na, never, smaranti, remember, atitaram, highly, priyam, dear, isha, O Lord, martyam, material body, ye, they who, cha, also, anu, in relationship with, atha, that, suta, sons, surit, friends, greha, home, vita, wealth, Dara and wife, ye, those who, tu, then Abjanabha, O Lord, who have a lotus navel, Bhadya of your, Pada Aravinda, lotus feet, Saugandhya, the fragrance, Lubda, have achieved, Hridayeshu, with devotees whose hearts, Krita Prasanga, have association. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. A special advantage in devotional service, translation. O Lord, who have a lotus navel, if a person happens to associate with a devotee whose heart always hankers after your lotus feet, seeking always their fragrance, he is never attached to the material body or in a bodily relationship to offspring, friends, home, wealth, and wife, which are very, very dear to materialistic persons. Indeed, he does not care for them. Purport. A special advantage in devotional service is that devotees not only enjoy the transcendental pastimes of the Lord by hearing and chanting and glorifying them, but also who are not very much attached to their bodies, unlike the yogis, who are too attached to the body and who think that by performing bodily gymnastic exercises, they will advance in spiritual consciousness. Yogis are generally not very much interested in devotional service. They want to regulate the breathing process. This is simply a bodily concern. Here, Dhruva Maharaj plainly says that a devotee has no more bodily interest. He knows that he is not the body. Therefore, from the very beginning, without wasting time in bodily exercises, a devotee searches out a pure devotee and simply by his association becomes more advanced in spiritual consciousness than any yogi. The devotee knows that he is not the body. He is never affected by bodily happiness or distress. He is not interested in bodily relationships with wife, children, home, bank balance, etc., or in the distress and happiness which come from these things. This is the special advantage of being a devotee. The status of life is possible only when a person is interested in associating with a pure devotee who always enjoys the fragrance of the lotus feet of the Lord. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Srinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanam Hridiyantastohiya Bhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavati Sevaya Bhaktir Bhagavati Bhaktir Bhagavati Uttama Shlokir Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Vir Krishna Das Goswaminati Namane. Namo Hamsa Nikasaya Prabhupada Priyaya Teshu Ditridi Nistabhyam Tasavakinu Vadine. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminati Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishishta Shunyavadi Bhashyata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So in the verse before 4, 9, 11, Dhruva Maharaj was requesting to the Lord to keep him in association of devotees who are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. So this tells us that good fortune, along with association and studying Srila Prabhupada's purport in context, and understanding them properly, instead of just thinking, oh, detachment, just leaving everything and falsely renouncing it. In context, if this is taken, then we can refer to Nectar of Devotion, where Srila Prabhupada explains that attachment is not something that should be killed artificially, as it's a natural process, and to kill it artificially will just be falsely renouncing it. And just because there has been detachment from all these things, it doesn't mean that one is automatically attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, just as detachment makes the heart harder. And in order to detach, the verse that we can refer to is Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Asu Vairagyam Jnanam Yad Brahma Darshanam. Engagement in Krishna consciousness and application of devotional service unto Krishna make it possible to advance in knowledge and detachment, as well as in self-realization. So this, so in order to get detached from all these material things, we have to attach ourselves to the lotus feet of Krishna. And when we do that, then sarvapadhi vinir muktam tat parat vena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktir uchyate. So bhakti or devotional service means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the master of all these senses. When the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from all material designations, and one's senses are purified simply by being employed in the service of the Lord. So if we instead of falsely renouncing and thinking that is detachment, if we attach to the lotus feet of Krishna, then two things happen. First is becoming free from all designations gradually. So this does not recommend, which I'm again repeating, this does not recommend to just getting rid of all material attachments through false renunciation, but getting rid of them by attaching to the lotus feet of the Lord. And the second thing that happens is that senses also become controlled by attaching oneself to the lotus feet of the Lord and by performing service. And when we perform service, then the venomous serpents of the senses become like serpents with broken fangs. So they aren't as poisonous to influence us into sense gratification. And Lord Chaitanya, who is most merciful incarnation of the Lord, he takes the first step towards everyone and distributes the mercy through chanting and giving the holy name, even to the unqualified. And generally, this happens in a moment's association, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:18-13. And some people change after coming in association. So a moment's association with a devotee cannot even be compared to the heavenly planets, all liberation from matter, and what to speak of worldly benedictions in the form of material prosperity. But generally, it is seen that mostly everyone's engaged in activities which prolong life, and this life is prolonged only to enjoy in the material world. Better than that is to have, and just instead of prolonging all this life, it's better to have the association and the desire to serve only in one moment instead of enjoying material life. And this material life is being enjoyed by eating improper food, drinking what isn't right, and instead what it's doing, it's just making worse and worse. So there are so many young people getting diseases like cancer because of all the rubbish that they're putting in their body in the name of enjoyment. And for happiness or sense enjoyment in a present brief moment, they are creating situations for a hellish future, not only in this current material world, but even beyond it as well. Not only in this current life, but beyond this. Then after this, the question of attachment comes, because these attachments are source of satisfaction, but then there is so many anxiety because of this attachment. So it all in all, it comes to a balancing choice where if one is attached to material world, then there is repeated birth and death. And if one is attached to the lotus feet of Lord, then there's no repeated birth and death. So attachment to material world, it'll just be sense gratification in the moment. But lotus feet of the Lord, it won't just be limited to this moment, but beyond it. And just in the purport, there was this one point here. A devotee searches out a pure devotee and simply by his association becomes more advanced in spiritual consciousness. This point, as well as this point, the status of life is possible only when a person is interested in associating with a pure devotee who always enjoys the fragrance of the lotus feet of the Lord. So if we refer back to the early days, like late 1960s, early 1970s, when everyone was joining the movement. So this is a lecture that I was hearing by His Holiness Niranjan Maharaj. And in that lecture, Maharaj was saying that everyone was attached to Srila Prabhupada more than they were attached to Krishna. And they were attached to Srila Prabhupada because he was very genuine and he used to walk the talk. He used to do what he said that he will do. And because of the genuinity, everyone was attached to him. And so because of this attachment to Srila Prabhupada, naturally they came in the movement. And because Srila Prabhupada was attached to Krishna, then because Srila Prabhupada was attached to Krishna and they were attached to Srila Prabhupada, then they also got attached to Krishna. So if one associates with a pure devotee who always enjoys the fragrance of the lotus feet of the Lord, then they also become attached to Krishna while being attached to the devotee who is attached to Krishna. And another verse, which is in Srimad Bhagavatam, Vayam tuna vitrapyama uttama shloke vikrame yat shrinvatam rasa jnanam svadu svadu pade pade. So the translation is, we never tire of hearing the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is glorified by hymns and prayers. Those who have developed a taste for transcendental relationships with him relish hearing of his pastimes at every moment. So coming in association of devotees who are constantly hearing and chanting and seeking for the lotus feet of the Lord, they relish speaking about his transcendental pastimes. And through these transcendental discussions, one becomes naturally happy. And this natural happiness is infectious, not infectious like COVID, but it's infectious and is passed on. But then now the question will come that if someone is naturally very happy, then does this mean that they will be immune from facing material miseries? No, that's not the case, because they will face material miseries because of all the karmic connections and everything else, but they will not be absorbed by facing these material miseries because they have already absorbed the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. So an example that we can take in this situation is the example of a sponge. So two properties or two characteristics that a sponge has is that it's highly liquid, high liquid absorption, and second is retention capacity. But even though a sponge has both these things, it still has a limit, so much so that one sponge cannot absorb the entire ocean. So what this tells us is that if like a sponge, we need to try and absorb the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Lord by the correct association, which will then disenable us to absorb material miseries that have a beginning and an end. And to detach ourselves from material miseries or material things, that doesn't mean false renunciation or detachment. That again means becoming attached to hearing the pastimes of Krishna, which will then immediately detach us from these material miseries and counteract all these material attachments. So the process of becoming detached from material miseries is actually to attach and hearing the transcendental pastimes of Krishna. And when this happens, when we become attached to hearing the transcendental pastimes of Krishna, that's where actual devotional service begins. And which is Shraddha. But at this stage of Shraddha, both nourishment and protection are needed. Nourishment in the form of continuous hearing, and protection from the karma, tendency towards karma, and protection from worldly attachments is needed. But this protection comes through nourishment, which is essentially watering the seed through more continuous hearing and chanting. And if this seed isn't watered, it wouldn't, then just around this whole area, all these weeds will come, and these weeds will end up choking the seed if it's not nourished properly. So the attainment of taste after association with devotees plus faith, this is where good fortune begins. The seed which grows, Bhakti Lata Beach, it can easily be choked by weeds if not nourished properly. And just at the beginning of every Bhagavatam class, we read out Shrinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravanam Kirtanam Hridiyantastohi Abhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. So Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So when one develops the urge, of material enjoyment from the heart of devotee who has developed the urge to hear his, so developing the urge would mean that listening to the transcendental pastimes of Krishna is as important as taking medicines when we are told to, but generally it's avoided because of the fear that all these attachments that are already in the heart. This is personally that I'm saying I feel that I avoid it because of the fear that all these attachments that are in my heart, they'll be taken away by Krishna. But then we can refer to Bilva Mangal Thakur's example, how if Krishna comes in and takes away all these attachments when we're not looking, then we can just trap him in the prison of our heart. So and this final point here, indeed, he does not care for them. This doesn't mean that there's complete detachment, but it means that there's attachment to Krishna, which overpowers this detachment. And I'll just open up a quick quote by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Huh? Sorry, I had it open on a different device, but I changed it just this morning. I cannot find the exact quote, but this was quoted by His Holiness Niranjan Maharaj in his lecture on this verse. And this is when, I'm rephrasing it, but this is when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was saying that that in order to become attached externally, we have to look as if everything is like Goloka. So he referred that all this nature, all this beauty that we see should be seen as part of Krishna's creation. All the women should be seen as to be enjoyed by Krishna, and all the children should be seen as Krishna's friends. And there were a few more quotes, a few more points like this that I can't quite remember now. But the final line for that quote was that if we end up seeing everything like this, then we will constantly be reminded of Krishna and be attached and remember everything, think of everything as to how it will be in Goloka. So these were all my points for today.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kanta. Thank you for a perfect class. Thank you. We still got a lot of time. Any devotees would have a reflection, comments, welcome. Thank you.
And I'll quickly do a summary at the end.
Okay, while devotees are framing their question, reflection, maybe you can do this. You can do the summary.
Okay. So just with summary, it was that the verse before was Dhruva Maharaj's request to the Lord to keep him in association of devotees who are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. And good fortune plus association and studying Srila Prabhupada's books in context is that's more important than just detaching falsely and going false renunciation. And also detachment is not something that should be killed artificially, but rather it should be diverted. So instead of being attached to material worlds, material things, material positions, it should be directed towards being attached to Krishna. And if it is falsely renounced, then it just makes the heart hard. Then when one becomes attached, then they are freed from all designations gradually. And senses have become controlled. So instead of being like venomous serpents, they become like serpents with broken fangs. And when we come in association, then creeper of devotional service, the seed of creeper of devotional service is developed. And if it's not nourished properly, then it can be choked by the weeds of all the attachments. And we need to be like a sponge, take in all the good association, all the transcendental pastimes. And once we've taken that in, then there will not be the absorbing capacity to absorb in all the material miseries. And just while I was saying this, my mom brought me an article. It's titled, "Association is the Key to Rise from Faith to Perfection." It starts off with Satam Prasanga Mama Virya Samvedo Bhavanti hritkarna rasayana katha tajoshanadasva apavargavartmani shraddharatir bhaktiranukrameshyati. In the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and thereafter he is freed and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begins. And these are just some verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, the glories of even a moment of association. So priceless treasure, first glory, even half a moment's association with pure devotees within this world of birth and death is a priceless treasure for any man. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:12-30. Second glorification, it cannot be compared to liberation. The value of a moment's association with a devotee of the Lord cannot even be compared to the attainment of heavenly planets or liberation from matter. 1:18-13. Detachment with material conception of life, third glory. A moment's association with devotees, the Vishnu, a Jamil detached himself from the material conception of life with determination. Thus freed from all material attraction, he immediately started for Hardwar. Fourth glory, no attraction for karma and jnana. If one by chance associates with a devotee, even for a fraction of a moment, he no longer is subject to attraction by the results of karma or jnana. Canto 4, chapter 24, verse 57. And the next point that's brought here is surrender, and just keying it in with what we discussed earlier. Through attachment, surrender comes. So Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur describes surrender unto the Supreme Lord in this way. Marobi rakhobi jo ichha tohara nitya dasa prati tuya adhikara. My Lord, I am now surrendered unto you. I am like your eternal servant, and if you like, you can kill me, or if you like, you can protect me. In any case, I am fully surrendered unto you. Srimad Bhagavatam 5:9-14. And also just keying in as to attachment in the material world. In the material world, if we end up getting attached, then we will have to surrender under someone or something or others, but no one is worthy to accept anyone's surrender, and nor does anyone surrender unless they are obliged to do so. But if the surrender is done in a spiritual perspective through attachment, then it's a voluntary process, and it occurs automatically as soon as one sees the beautiful, youthful nature of the Lord, and also becomes attached to that form or hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. So this is the point from here as well.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Very good class. Very good example. The example of a sponge is very, very attractive to me, because how the sponge works inherently is very nice. First of all, we absorb it, we retain it, and the next process you try to share it with others. When the sponge becomes full of, then it starts releasing towards another. That example is very nice. There in this text, especially the power of association is highlighted, how the power of association takes away everyone who are interested in the devotional service. So the importance of association is highlighted very much by Dhruva Maharaj. It can move yourself from any material attachment to a transcendental attachment. Yeah, that's the example we have. Thank you.
And even in yesterday's class, Raman Krishna Prabhu was referring to a quote by His Holiness Devamrita Maharaj as to how even in this association, there needs to be some form of tolerance or something like that. And that will also, because the ultimate end is to attain Krishna Prem. So if one is on a ship on the Atlantic Ocean with everyone else, and if they end up getting into a fight, there'll only be two options. Either you stay in the ship, stay in the boat, and just tolerate and let it go through until you get to the end, to the destination, which is Krishna Prem, or you jump out and get eaten by sharks.
Yeah, that's example given about this, yogis, because in the platform, the yogis platform is all about the bodily concept, where
Yes.
is the devotees considered as the a soul concept which is eternal. So once we accept that it is not a bodily platform, then we are readily accept the transcendental pleasure from the Lord. And that way, body and soul become separated, apparently, and it gets connected to the Lord. Because of the connection, we become pleased and we get the pleasure. And that time, whatever the bodily concept remains, it immediately get abolished, because that notion of sense of this devotional attachment takes away all the material pain we have with our body, because the soul and the body is different at that point of time when you are attached to the Lord. That's how, this is the reason why we do the chanting. So by doing the chanting with attention, what we actually do, we get connected with the Lord, and then we forget about our surroundings, what is happening, and we become so immersed in the transcendental bliss, and we relish that mellow with the Lord. So that bodily platform becomes vanquished, and we just get connected with the bliss of the Lord, because Lord is all eternal and blissful. So because of that reason, we become more and more what should I say the word?
Attached.
Attached. So that is the reason why the association is very, very important, because it keeps you in a line, aligned with the Lord, not with the material attachment. So in that case, the example is given over here. You forget everything, all the bodily concepts, that is your Sutta, Surit, Griha, Vita, and Dhara. So you forget everything, only you are aligned with the Lord. So the bodily platform, miseries or everything get automatically detached. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kanta. It's a very nice class. Yeah, you have your example is very nice, especially how the attachment comes, and if you attach with Supreme Lord or pure devotee, detachment automatically will come. Also, I like this example of sponge. Yes, that association of devotees, it's remember that Chaitanya Charitamrita, the slok, sadhu sangha, sarva shastra koi, labho matra sadhu sangha, sarva siddhi hai. So that's that point I have taken today from you. Sadhu Sangha is so important. Yeah. So if we take the Sadhu Sangha, so we have Sarva Siddhi Hai. So attachment will come. Thank you.
Thank you,
Krishna
Mataji.
Kanta. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. So class is very nice. You have given so many examples and slokas for the reference. So I like the point, the importance of association here. Yes, it is very, very important. We can take the example of Narada Muni.
Yes.
So that is also very significant. So within short time, so he achieved the perfection by the association, even though he didn't know anything. So previously, by the association of the tinge of association, makes everyone perfection. Yeah, thank you so much. Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
for that point, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anybody else got any reflection, anything to share? We still got enough time. Okay, it doesn't seem to be. So I'd like to thank Grace Krishna Kanta Mataji for realization and sharing this program on this morning. Thank you, Mataji. And all the devotees who assemble and share their realization. Thank you very much. So we'll end the program here. Thank you very much. Grace Krishna Kanta Mataji ki jai.
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 Lord Bhakti, Lord
अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, कृष्ण कंता की जय, बोल भक्त की जय।